Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Time is now 4 o'clock. Let me see. I don't believe we have a quorum. Yeah, don't look like we have a quorum. So we'll move right along. Is there any public comments, Whitney?
No, sir.
All right. We'll jump right into Office of Small Business Opportunity with LaSasha Breland.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to go over the numbers of SLBEs that we currently have in our directory. We have 7 architectural and engineering, 61 construction, 82 non-professional services, 72 professional services, 6 wholesale, which gives us a total of 228 certified SLBEs to date. We also have 1 pending new application and 3 renewing SLBEs. As far as events, in the month of October, OSBO hosted a virtual lunch and learn workshop series titled, "Does my business have export potential? What does it take to go international?" And we held that via Zoom. This event provided in-depth knowledge on how business owners may expand their business internationally via export and what local resources are available to assist with that process. Attendees also heard from 2 small businesses that have taken the leap, which has yielded growth for their businesses. And when it comes to 2025, we are currently building our calendar. So be on the lookout for New Year based goals that we have for our office. We are going to be having different workshops, webinars, and collaborative events with our collaborative partners in the community. So we can't wait to share that with you all once we have things finalized. And lastly, a reminder of the Office of Small Business Opportunities initiative to recruit new small businesses in our community. We do have a small local business enterprise program, and we are always seeking new business owners to see if they qualify. If you know anyone that may be interested, please contact us at 803-576-1540 or via email at osbo@richlandcountysc.gov. Are there any questions?
Crickets. Thank you, Miss LaSasha.
Thank you.
I miss seeing you in person. Next, we'll jump to the comment with Miss Jackie Bowers.
Good afternoon, everyone. So as you may have noticed, our report is much shorter this time, and that is because the Davis and Floyd bus stop amenities report is not included. Back in June, when we suspended all projects for the shelters and benches because we were looking at re-examining our routes for on-time performance. AOS is the company, the contractor that was doing the actual installation and removal of shelters and benches. That's who we had the contract with. And they contacted us in August, stating that they were ending the contract with us to do that work. And that went into effect September the 30th. So when AOS ended their agreement with us, then Davis and Floyd, they ended their service as well. But luckily, we didn't have any major projects that had to be completed because most of them were either completed or nearly completed. The subcontractor for AOS that was doing the actual work, they reached out to us and said, hey, since we were doing the work anyway, can we continue doing that? So we temporarily onboarded them to do like emergency projects and repairs. So that's where we are now. Once we get everything finalized as far as getting another engineering company, then we'll start back with the reports. In the meantime, I'm keeping track of everything. So first we would go to monthly ridership, which is item A. So the ridership for October was 158,783. And the same time last year, it was 132,922. So that was an increase of 19.45%. And then month-to-month comparison, September's ridership was 140,220. So compared to October, that was an increase of 13.23%. Next, we have the average daily ridership. So this part of the report shows the total ridership for every month in 2023. And also it shows the ridership for every month in 2024 up through October. And it also shows the average daily ridership. So next page will be the USC ridership. So it was 49,364 in the month of October, which was an increase of 1,676 passengers compared to September. And the USC game day ridership, which is, for the USC home game, for September, it was 5,526 passengers that we transported. Okay. So the next report, which is item B, that's our financial statement for the period ending September 30th, 2024. And then item C shows our DBE report, which tracks our DBE participation. So that concludes my report, unless someone has any questions for me.
Any questions for Ms. Jackie? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Next, we'll jump right into the transportation program with Director Maloney.
Good afternoon, everyone. Got a past event that occurred, which was the groundbreaking for Percival Sidewalk, and their pre-construction meeting is upcoming. I think it's this week or next week. They're setting that with the contractor, AOS Specialty Contractors. Atlas Road groundbreaking is being discussed as a upcoming groundbreaking. They have had the pre-construction meeting on that project in late October, and some utility work on the private utility side has started, and the contractor will be starting with this week the clearing and grubbing along the sides of the road. So Atlas is underway. Atlas Phase 2, which is a different part of the alignment, which is to the west from Bluff Road to Shop Road. The final plans are getting their final comments from DOT, and at which time we do have approval there. We'll put that project out for bid. Percival, again, that project will be completed next summer. Atlas is about almost a 3-year project. And then we'll be looking at ribbon cutting for Alpine Road sidewalk and resurfacing, which is just wrapping up with some punch list items with Department of Transportation. We're expecting our approval to start getting right away very soon for Spears Creek Church Road. We did receive the right-of-way approval to get in and acquire right-of-way on Lower Richland Boulevard. To be a nice project with shared use paths and a roundabout at Rabbit Run connecting into Garner's Ferry Road with 5-lane. Well, 5-lane from essentially the back of the high school to Garner's Ferry, and then 3-lane back down to Rabbit Run. As far as work on the Penny 2, we're just looking at getting the 2012 projects put together into by council district, and I did get that from Miss Whitney Struthers. So I kind of showed those project budgets in each council district, and we'll be ready to go when that time comes. But we'll want to share that list with you at the next meeting, because we have a few things that we want to launch together with that, just kind of being prepared for when that we get to go in the future. Reviewing any experts we need in our staff augmentation. Currently, that's been sewer and water utility design and right-of-way negotiations has been the bulk of our staff augmentation, as well as testing concrete when we put in curb and gutter and sidewalks. So those are pretty much it, but we're also looking at like trail experts for greenways that would be involved in the design work of greenways, shared use paths and bikeways. And then we're setting up so that there's a tracking for all 11 districts based on the expenditures, since that's a component of the future program. So that would be tracking getting above 20 million in each district and what that involves for projects. So we still have to put a lot of the needs into that, but looking at the needs assessment, that'll be another thing to know what could be put in based on the scoring. So we'll have to have a program to score the needs assessment projects based on the principles document, and get those by council district and included in, so that we can understand high scoring projects and how they would fulfill meeting the 20 million in each district. And I think I'm ready to take any questions.
Any update on Decker? The purification of Decker back on Vermont?
I'm not aware of that being a project. Where they did have, in the NIPs,
Yeah,
they had at one time they had some beautification. Those were de-scoped in the NIPs some time ago in the past. So most of what remains, mainly what's in the NIPs are extensive sidewalk projects. Trenton Newcastle's one of the larger ones remaining, and that has really, it all has to be done, and that's about 4.5 miles of sidewalk in the Trenton and Newcastle neighborhood areas. There was originally, I guess, a staff, there was a de-scope of sidewalk getting out to Park Lane,
yeah,
and that was
that's what I mean.
that was put back in.
Okay,
There was no connectivity to Park Lane, so that was clearly a part of the goals of the project. So OET put that in a couple of years ago. But where that whole project is, for example, like that's all sidewalk going in behind curb and gutter. That's been with DOT now for 5 months for an encroachment permit.
Okay.
And once we get the encroachment permit approved, we can bid it out, get it built. We did receive approval to build, an authorization to proceed to build a sidewalk not too far from there, further down on Decker and then over to the east Brookfield Road. And Brookfield Road just needs a couple of property permissions and acquisitions. Once we get those, we can bid out Brookfield Road. Our project manager, Michael Green, was also looking at putting Hunt Club Road in with that.
Yeah,
We need some permissions on couple of the properties on Hunt Club Road. But with DOT, the only thing we've gotten is authorization to do right away negotiation, 60% plan approval. And I got a call from a small contractor that would be an SLBE that does concrete work. And it started to kind of, instead of packaging projects into a larger project, it might be possible to bid out Brookfield when it's ready alone, so that a concrete sidewalk and curb and gutter contractor could just be the general, pretty much almost a lone general to get that done. We had someone new come into OSBO's conference that we haven't worked with before, but they had all kinds of documentation and pictures of their past work that looked really good. The problem with small companies would be bonding large amounts. So keeping the project separate might be an advantage to be able to have local contractors, small contractors.
Thank you.
thank you.
There was a contractor that I referred over to Pam and them, Diamond Concrete, and he was excited to put in a bid, but then he was told that he couldn't bid it. He would have to go under somebody else because he was a small business. So are
Yeah.
you saying that's going to change now?
Well, by having yes, it could. And in that particular project, when you look at the concrete work, it's maybe a third of the work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was maybe Percival Road. They did turn in a bid, but it was non-responsive in that they only filled out the concrete work and turned in a bid to the county. We don't put together all the components for people to bid on parts of projects.
I got you.
You do need a general. So, we did talk to him into that company, and both at OSBO and at procurement and myself. And I think these smaller sidewalk projects would be something where it's a high percentage of just doing the concrete work, that they could be the general and could carry that bond.
Gotcha.
But yeah, they couldn't do that. The only other thing, if they want to get on a larger project like Percival, would be to form relationships and then get their quotes out to the general contractors.
Okay.
And I'll just add to what Director Maloney stated, because we have talked with them at length about really what the process would look like for them for some of the larger pieces, and then they would need to look to be or become a subcontractor on some of these. So they're clear now on how to proceed with bidding on some of these projects because they do great work. So thank you so much for referring them to the office. They'll be great small businesses to work with.
I just had him do some work here at this apartment complex I manage, and their work was definitely top notch at a good price too.
I did have a question for Director Maloney on Atlas Road. I think it was the Phase 1B, Director Maloney. Did you say that is getting ready to go out for bid? I was going through the.
I didn't say anything about Phase 1B. So I was talking about Phase 1A that's just getting into construction now, And then I
Okay.
mentioned phase 2, which is that other part of it. But phase 1B will happen when we get to a certain stage of phase 1A.
Okay,
So phase 1A is all the utility relocation, clearing, and getting everything ready and out of the way to build the road. And we've got to get that to a certain stage. There's 3 different stages or areas of phase 1A and B. And so when we get to a really good distance on phase or stage 2 of it, we'll be able to bid out phase 1B. We don't have a date for that yet because it's going to be based on contractors' pace on things that they encounter out there. But it could be as early as late winter, and probably as late as summer.
okay. All right, cool. Thank you.
Any other questions or anything for Director Maloney?
It's
Hey,
Christopher.
direct. Oh. You can go ahead, Christina.
So that for Director Maloney or Michael Green, if he's on the call, could you give an update on the Blythewood Road widening and the status on the paving?
Yes,
Go ahead,
okay.
Michael.
Yes, on Blythewood Road, we just got a change order in from the contractor Cherokee, and the change order covers the cost to perform night work. There's a lot of traffic out there during the day, so the paving has to be done at night. So whenever that change order is processed, we'll begin the paving operations on site. We're looking at sometime this week being able to start.
So thanks, Mike. The change order was just sitting here. It went to procurement, and after procurement looks it over, it will go to Administrator Brown. Once we have an approved change order, I'm sure the contractor will be ready to go.
Okay.
And that night work is not all work. It's just the work they're doing that affects the 2 driving lanes that are there.
Right.
Ideally, they would be building the widening and putting traffic onto the widening and then dealing with the middle of the road because there's so much buildup required, they didn't want to leave the center of the road so low. That's why they started doing that suddenly without warning a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, this is Eva Prelo. I have a question for Director Maloney.
Hey, Eva.
Hello. Hey, with the sidewalk projects, when do we, the TPAC committee, see sidewalk projects when they do?
I'm sorry.
Is there a list, like once they're approved? Oh, can you hear me?
You were cutting out, Eva. I was missing a critical part of what you were saying.
I was asking about sidewalks when we see the sidewalk design, the different phases on the report. Is there a approved list of sidewalks that does not make the list? Do it makes the list once it hits design, and then we see it? Because I've been getting questions about sidewalks in various communities, and I'm not sure if there's maybe a list that have like approved but just haven't made it to a phase of design. So is there such a list as that?
There is a very limited list at this point. I'll explain more. But Sunset, which is under construction, and Percival, I believe are the last 2 approved projects in our program. And you know how they originally filled up the list with approved projects. And then there were, I will say, in about 2019, there were 6 big sidewalk projects that were cut. I don't have those handy, but one of them, the largest one was 2-Notch Road from Alpine Road all the way out to Spears Creek Church Road. You know, at that time, it was a $9 million project. It's probably 12 million, 13, 14 million now. So we have that. We have those 6 sidewalk projects in the Penny carryover to go into the second Penny 2. And of course, with that requirement that those projects get launched first. There is a couple of smaller ones on that list too, but there, any neighborhood requests we've been taking in at Public Works and going to CTC for funding. Public Works has been doing a lot of connectivity type sidewalk projects and then going to the County Transportation Committee for funding. And so until we get the Penny 2, you know, launched to be able to do new projects, in this meantime, I'm gonna say I would, you know, for the next couple years, unless something changes with how we start the Penny 2 with the approved bond that happened, I'm gonna suggest people continue to get requests to Public Works Engineering, and then we would get that, you know, with the backing of, it helps to have the backing of a council member, and then get that on CTC's bi-monthly meeting meeting agenda.
Okay, thank you, Director Maloney.
Yep, and but once we do have Penny 2, because community investment was such a large percentage of it, installing sidewalks and other pedestrian accommodations to improve access and safety has a $410 million position in that Penny 2.
Got it, but first you'll need to.
So, which is incredibly large as compared to the current Penny. And don't ask Siri or anyone else. Because when you think about the Penny 1, you know, the 98 million? Look at my sheet here. All of, under the referendum of Penny 1, all bike, pedestrian, and greenways and sidewalks were 80 million. And then I go to this Penny 2 and I'm looking at 400 and some million just for, you know, sidewalks and that. So if there's somebody that needs a sidewalk, I can't imagine it won't get done. So that's a shift in the investment to the community in a big way. You know, we'll have to keep in mind that it's still a 1% tax, and currently the revenue on that is about 100 million a year. And, you know, after our first bond payment and the comment, you know, we're looking at maybe 60 million of new project funding each year. That's going to continue to grow and is projected to double in 25 years to somewhere near 200 million. And that's what will kind of create that larger revenue stream that we've been talking about. And then the other thing that will help get a lot of things like a lot of pavement reconditioning, roads rebuilt, as well as sidewalks, will be something like the bond. So it was amazing to see too that the bond passed a couple percent higher than the penny. And that's there, and that will be part of the early discussions here on how that gets started.
Director Maloney, is it someone sent me a question on the Atlas Road for the bike lanes and the sidewalk question. Instead of a 5-foot wide painted bike lane, is it possible, and then a 5-foot sidewalk, is it possible to just do a 10-foot sidewalk for safety reasons?
That's
Or
not, yeah, well, I'll start and say, well, that's not what DOT approved, but having said that, that will put the sidewalk right next to the outer driving lane. And you could say, well, you could be to the, you could be to the right of way side of that and not the road side of that. It might be safer. But, what we do have is 5-foot paved bike lanes on each side, curb and gutter, and then 5-foot sidewalk. Now, I don't think we have an ordinance that prohibits use of the sidewalk, for children and other things for being on the sidewalk. And I know the question. I've given it some thought, and I'd be concerned with taking the the concrete all the way to the driving lane.
Gotcha. But that is something that we could kind of look into or ponder. We got time anyway, right?
We have a little bit of time, something like 6 months.
Gotcha.
So what we're sitting on are South Carolina DOT approved final plans for construction. And we've taken those plans and we've separated them so that there's the approved plans are still there, but we bid out just relocations, and then the next bid will be roadway construction. And that's where I'm saying, yeah, we may have something like 6 months to ponder this, but they are on DOT approved plans. Those kind of changes actually don't sound like a lot, but they would actually change all the grades on the plans.
So would it be possible if you have the road, the curb, the sidewalk, and then the bike path on the other side of the sidewalk versus having the bike path along the roadway? Is that something that would be an option?
Well, the bike path should be flow with the travel lanes.
Okay.
I saw a picture of a bike track, and they kind of put, they put the two-way traffic of bikes adjacent to a driving lane, separated by 2 feet of raised concrete, like a double curb head separating them. And that does have its own issues, with bikes traveling one way, and it not as much in the daytime as at night with oncoming lights and stuff, but it can be confusing.
Gotcha. I'll get some more information on that from the questioner and get back to you, so maybe we can have like a public response at the next meeting on it too, with some more details. Any other questions for Director Maloney?
Director Maloney, this is Ashton Williams. How are you doing today? Can you hear me okay?
Doing well.
Okay, perfect. I have a quick question. I know you mentioned earlier about bonding, and I know we have a lot of SLBs, DBEs, or MBEs bidding on these projects, and I was just wondering right offhand, do you know for a small business how much bonding they would need to, let's say on average, to bid on a project? like a concrete job project or something like that?
Let's see who's here. I'm gonna say it would be the amount of whatever they're bidding on.
Okay.
You know, so if it's a $500,000 sidewalk project, the bond would be a performance and payment bonds would be in based on that amount.
Okay, sounds good. And other than the bonding, what is another big challenge you see a lot for our SLBE firms or DBE firms outside of bonding?
Well, this isn't real technical, but kind of like when they're kind of used to doing what we just heard, like, you know, just working on their own. Kind of on our projects, sometimes they find they need trucking or they need something, and so kind of like a relationship of other contractors. And I think we heard that at the conference. There was actually we did have a new concrete contractor there, but we also had a new landscape contractor there who would kind of finish things up and, you know, make the site look good at the end with and sometimes early to do stabilization of prevent erosion during construction. So those two firms were kind of trading cards because, you know, they're going to be in that same boat where they're newer to working for the county. And that's the kind of thing I think they need is more relationships like that to be able to do that. And if they start off small, they might be okay for a while, and then they, you know, want to grow a little bit, and then they go into the next realm where now they need asphalt. And I think that was kind of some of the complaint that some of the, well, in particular, one of the competitors is a larger asphalt company. And the asphalt company has a sort of a company within that does sidewalks. So they would be competing, you know, against that larger company. And I think if we kind of keep things so that they can bid on something they can do, that won't come into play. Another thing that would be the percentage of SLBE requirements on the job, kind of help out.
Okay.
Go ahead.
One last question. Will they be able to do set-asides for any of these projects, like the small concrete jobs, things like that? Or
Yeah,
that's another question.
I was kind of referring to it in that sense. Just last thing I was saying was, you know, the percent of SLBE requirement by putting it high, like 70%. If you know you have the contract, you know you got the contractors that can do that. That would be kind of like essentially, I don't know if I use that word set aside, but it's kind of like that. You know, it for the large firm company out there that has that built in inside, they aren't going to be, you know, SLBE.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Any other questions? Thank you, Director.
Yeah.
Our next meeting is scheduled for December 16th. Hopefully, Chairwoman Mackey will be able to have some kind of an update as to the state of the penny. We haven't heard anything more on that other than it'll be January, February-ish, I guess. But hopefully we'll have some kind of an update on that because it definitely takes more than a couple months planning. Unless anybody has anything else, it's 4:39. We are officially adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Great, thank y'all. Have a good day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.